This is Neil Schneider for MTBS-TV at GDC 2019. To my immediate right is Glenn Fiedler. He is CEO of a company called Network Next. Welcome to the program, Glenn.
Thank you very much.
So let's talk a little bit about games. I mean, here we are at GDC, and something that's hidden behind the scenes is the means of multiplayer gaming and streaming. What would you say is one of the big challenges of making that work?
Right now it's latency, because we're seeing a huge trend towards esports games, which are hyper-competitive, and at the same time, everybody in North America wants to play together according to skill.
So for those unfamiliar, what is latency?
Latency is the delay between your actions that you do on your machine and the server where the game runs seeing those. So if you've ever played a game and you thought you killed somebody, but they killed you instead and you just didn't see it yet, that's latency.
Now, usually when you play a multiplayer game, you'll see servers all over the world. You pick the server that's closest to you. Obviously, it's a quantity of server, location of server. There's all kinds of steps being done by game developers to make the games more effective, more efficient. Is that enough?
Not in my experience. So I've been working with some of the best teams. Like I worked with the God of War team, and then I worked with Respawn with the ex-Call of Duty guys. And I spent most of my last 10 years trying to code my way out of this problem, thinking that I could write the perfect network code, and then no one who played my game would ever complain. But if you've ever played any of my games, some people have complained. And what I've found is it's not the network code. When you do everything right, players still, some percentage, can still get a bad experience. And even if you host in the best data center, even if your matchmaker is perfect and finds the best group of people to play together, somebody still has a bad experience. And I'm sure anybody who games is familiar with the experience of playing a great game and then playing another game, and now it's laggy, right? It's not consistent. So what we're trying to do at Network Next is to solve this problem. I want everyone who plays games to have the best experience possible. And what we've discovered is that the internet today just isn't up to the task.
So, but why is that the case? I mean, it seems like the developers have every advantage. They can choose their servers, they got unlimited processing power. Like, what's holding them back? Okay,
so when you pick one particular server, you're stuck with how that server peers with all these different transit providers. So somebody on a particular ISP in a particular location might not be well paired with that data center. So what we found is that many game developers have tried a sort of a spray and pray approach, where it's like, let's just cover the map with servers in all the locations, a bunch of different providers. And now the player base is totally fragmented, right? You want to play with, like, take a game like Rocket League. It's an esport. You want to play with your friends. You don't want to play on like little, my small town, the server. Right? So we're seeing this huge trend where these esports games that are like the top 10 games on Twitch, all they want is everyone in North America to get good performance to where they host their servers. And they can't do that right now. So it's so bad that Riot, 3 years ago, built their own private intranet for League of Legends. And now every other game doesn't have that. We think every game should have that same advantage.
So just to be clear, you could have your own servers. It doesn't necessarily solve the problem.
Yep.
You could locate a gaming server close to the gamer.
Yep.
That doesn't necessarily solve the problem.
For a game like Destiny and casual games where it's kind of like, I want to hang out with my buddies, and like, I think that the server's close to you, it does a pretty good job. But it's those games where you want everyone to play together in a big region that they're not being served well right now.
And being from a coding background yourself, coding good networking code doesn't necessarily solve the problem either, I think.
So what we've found is that between your ISP and the server where the data center is running, there's all these different entities that don't really have any incentive to treat your packets like you want them to be treated. So we're creating a marketplace where people with private infrastructure, network infrastructure, already built for stuff like, not like CDNs, like streaming video and streaming images and all that sort of stuff that you're used to for 20 years. These same networks can accelerate games and reduce latency for players and give them a more consistent experience. So we're kind of taking over the internet and saying, okay, like, I get it, like, you don't want to deal with this, gaming traffic is different to the rest. We're going to take care of it over here. And that's what we do at Network Next.
So what I'm gathering, so Network Next is the company, you're saying, okay, you guys can't control the distribution to get it where you need it to be.
Yeah.
So what you do is I take it you've got partners with like ripe connectivity from, let's say, one node to the next on the internet.
Yeah.
And you're making it possible for their dedicated traffic to get through with minimal latency.
Here's a really good analogy, right? Imagine it's like LA 10 years from now. And not only has Elon Musk built tunnels everywhere, but like there's an Akamai tunnel, a Cloudflare tunnel, a Limelight tunnel, a Google tunnel, an Amazon tunnel. But everyone's just still going along the surface roads, right? What if someone could open up the tunnels and just let people get from A to B really quickly? The internet's exactly the same. There's all of these private networks that your traffic doesn't go across right now. Why don't we put game traffic across that? But if you want to do that, you've got to give them an incentive. And you've got to kind of find a market price too. How much should it cost? I don't get to say that. So we're creating a free competitive marketplace that discovers a market price, first for gaming traffic, and then in the future maybe VR, AR, telepresence. Anything that has the same real-time characteristics of gaming. It's not getting served well on the internet today. I can't see an internet 10 years from now that doesn't have this solved. So we're getting busy on it.
So now there's two perspectives on this. So one perspective is the consumer, the person who plays the video games.
Yeah.
And then the second perspective is the content creator and perhaps the publisher that's determining, how are they going to make their products work.
Yeah.
So the nature of Network Next, I don't think you're a consumer-facing initiative, right? No. So this may need, people may never see the light, consumers may never know how things are working.
We are a B2B company. We work with game developers like Psyonix, our first customer with Rocket League. They like what we're doing so much, they invested in us in our last round. We love working with them, and we know that players don't want to pay for better internet. They're already paying for their ISP. That should be enough, right? And when you host game servers right now, publishers and game developers pay money to host game servers in the best locations they can find. And these games are often free to play. So when you look at Network Next and you're looking at the offering for game developers, what we're really selling to them is your players will be happier, they'll have a better experience, they'll churn less, they'll tell their friends your game is great, and your player base will grow.
So let's put a number to it, okay? I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here. If you were to compare just a traditional internet connectivity for a game, like the latency, to what you're looking to do, how far apart should they be?
We're finding that 60% of players that we have on Network Next right now are faster on Network Next than on the public internet. And 10% of those are getting a 20 millisecond or greater reduction in latency. Some are getting like 100 or 150. Like, we're seeing people, if you can believe it, with Google Fiber. Like, this is not like, oh, look at that guy's DSL from like the late 90s. This is like, this person has Google Fiber and what? Like, they're going from 120 milliseconds down to 10, right? And these are people who would have been sitting here playing the games for the customers that we work with, going like, this game experience is terrible. Like, what's up with this, right?
So I immediately see like the benefits for multiplayer games. Right. One of the, obviously the network's building like 5G networks, so they're very dependent on very fast throughput, though latency is a separate issue. So virtual reality, immersive technology going through these networks probably would be benefit from something like this. Am I correct?
Yes, I completely agree. When we were raising money for this company, I'll be honest, I'm a firm believer in the future of VR and AR. I don't want to live in a world where it doesn't become ubiquitous, right? Like, it has to be a thing. The challenge is that venture capitalists have already kind of seen the peak, and then now they're in the trough of disillusionment, right? And I really strongly believe that some killer application, possibly remote telepresence, will come out in 5 or 10 years. And here's the cool thing about that. I'm certain that's going to be 100 times the bandwidth of video. And right now, video is 100 times the bandwidth of games. But we're focusing on games right now because games are the most latency-sensitive application. It's also what I've done for the last 20 years. So
this could go beyond games. This could go beyond games, yeah?
Absolutely. Like, we're focusing on games right now because there's just such a clear need, and I just love games. But once we succeed in games, we want to start looking at, let's make video chat better. Let's make real-time applications in virtual reality better. And those also have high throughput as well as low latency. That's harder too.
Now, we don't have to mention the brands, but there were big streaming, gaming announcements here, at least one that I know of, at Game Developers Conference. Do you think technologies like this would benefit the streaming gaming services and the streaming content services, or is this a separate thing altogether?
It's pretty much separate. The infrastructure being built to support game streaming actually ultimately can help us reduce latency for players. What I've found in my career working in games is that gamers want less latency. I'm very skeptical of something that adds latency to a player's experience.
Okay, good stuff. Well, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. Cheers.
This is Neil Schneider for MTBS-TV at GDC 2019. We will, of course, be back with more. Thank you for watching.